I think it's very practical. I always have to take it right back to how am I feeling right now? That's really my touchstone.
Um, and that sort of takes away the takes away the frustration of what's going to happen next,
Yeah.
which we don't really know.
Yeah. We don't. I think Jesus is teaching us, I mean, with the first lesson in the book, nothing I see means anything. In one sense, he's teaching us that actually nothing real is happening at all. It's an illusion of a happening. But that doesn't usually help most people. Like, well, it sure seems to be happening, so I'm not going to deny that it seems to be happening. So what I say is, but what if we always have the choice of our interpretation of what we believe is happening? So if the Holy Spirit is with us in the moment and it's pure joy, that interpretation of the Holy Spirit must be available right now. Instead of ego agendas, oh, I want this to happen and this should be different and this should be changed. Because Jesus says, in the workbook lesson of today, that the ego says, any person or thing needs to change for me to be happy. And Jesus is saying, no, just change your mind. And that's where the happiness resides, not in people and circumstances and outcomes in linear time. It's just change your mind about your mind, have your intent, your purpose be the most important thing.
Um, a while back, actually several months ago, Dove Fishman told me to work with lesson 25. I don't know what anything is for. And I find that's, again, so practical that because I immediately judged not finding a parking space. But I don't know why things worked out this way. Maybe it's actually better that I didn't find a parking space up close or wherever. That I don't know. My ego is always saying this is the way things should be, but the ego is inevitably wrong in that judgment.
Yeah. I think that sounds also like very Zen. It's like when we become humble. I always think of like Thich Nhat Hanh and how humble he was. I think that humbleness leads us in right into the grace. When we really just accept that we don't know our own best interest, and Jesus says that pretty early in the workbook, that in no situation do you perceive your own best interest, which is pretty strong. But then he
Yeah.
comes in and he says everything's in your own best interest, meaning the Bible and the Course say all things work together for good. And there's a state of mind that is just absolutely without judgment, that can behold the divine perfection of all things working together for good. And that is very high. Admittedly, that's a very high goal. But what else do we have to put our hearts and minds into? You and I are saying, okay, we say yes. Let's
Right.
go.
Um, David, we have a question from a friend that says, question. So how are you feeling right now?
I'm feeling very happy and relaxed, and I I have to say this was a kind of a nice spontaneous invitation. So I was just flowing through my day and just actually listening to some music, just really enjoying it, cranking it up, and then I set my alarm for when I needed to come on. And so when the alarm went off on my phone, I like, okay, let's get set up here and jump in there with Eric.
I appreciate that you did. We have another question that says, if we forgive a person and we still feel uncomfortable around them and just tolerating, is that true forgiveness?
Yeah, that's a good question because I think forgiveness goes so deep that we've tried to forgive people and we've tried to even follow Jesus said forgive 70 times 7, he said in the Bible. But actually what I feel is forgiveness is letting go of the meaning that we gave to everything in the world. So it's almost like a tabula rasa, like a blank slate, clearing our mind of judgments. And I mean, even tiny judgments. And one thing I learned with the course was that forgiveness wasn't, you can practice with people, of course we do, but also it's about letting go of the good and the bad. Like a lot of times there's spiritualities that teach, accentuate the positive and eliminate the negative. But if you really go into like lesson 189, where Jesus says, simply do this, be still, he's saying, lay aside all thoughts of what you are, what God is. And he's teaching us everything that we think is good and bad. For example, even the compliments and the criticisms, they're all in the same basket because God sees only good. God is doesn't reject anything or anyone. And the typical way of the human sleeping mind is judging everything in a positive or negative way, kind of like a binary system, ones and zeros, where one is good and zero is bad. And it's like it's just going rapidly all the time. And Jesus is saying, come into the stillness. You can't find the peace and the forgiveness in the chatter of these ones and zeros. Or as Facebook, we have likes and dislikes. Now they have a bunch of other emojis too, but I think we're just starting to let go of all the categorizing.
Um, the lessons that have spontaneously been playing through my mind lately um, is love holds no grievances, and love has created me like itself. That has seemed to act as a get out of judgmental jail for
Yeah,
me, um, because any grievance, any resentment, any judgment that I'm holding, I just remind myself, one, that love holds no grievances, and that two, love has created me like itself. Therefore, truly, who I who I really am, I can't hold a grievance.
yeah,
And I just ask
yeah,
the Holy Spirit to remind me of that.
yeah, yeah. That's so beautiful because we're used to a system of in our mind categorizing friends and enemies. It's like the part of our fight or flight survival thing. Are you a friend? Are you an enemy? Our friend, I like you. Enemy, I don't like you. And then Jesus came along and said, love your enemies. Bless those who curse you. Uh, Blessed are those who persecute you in my namesake. I used to say, what does that mean? And Jesus said, I'm not saying that persecution is real, but I am saying that if you believe in persecution, if you believe in judgment, if you believe in attack, you need to pluck these ego concepts from your mind right now. Because if you believe you have enemies, you have great need of prayer because you need to clean the slate. If you're perceiving enemies, then that means you believe you have external enemies. And even Gandhi was so good at saying, the blind leading the blind and both fall in the pit. You
Right.
know, how are we going to find peace if we're still judging people, places, things? We really do have to just see that we're not really capable of judgment. Not that we have to try to force it or fight against it, like you said, where you feel like you have to do something, achieve forgiveness. I'm going to master forgiveness. And Jesus has said, just mastery through love. Just come back in here with me and feel how soft it is and how easy and how natural it is. You don't have to fight the fight.
And that's really the message behind the I need do nothing, right?
Yeah. I really feel there are times when the ego is just saying, oh, something has to be done about this. And then I hear Jesus laughing because it's as if there's a belief that we have to do something to set things right. And Jesus is just saying, be with me and see everything is good instead of, get out there and try to be an active warrior. I find even terms like peaceful warrior to be contradictions in terms like
Right.
I don't want to be a peaceful warrior. I want to be peaceful. Uh,
Um, and that's also like the image of Jesus saying, I came with a sword.
yeah, yeah. When I've heard that, I've asked Jesus about that. He says something in the course about I could never have said that, but when I've asked him what's a helpful interpretation, he says, well, think of the Holy Spirit as like the sword of discernment, because you and I have been in spirituality for a long time, and discernment is a good thing, uh, because, like in the Bible, it says you have to discern, sort out between the wheat and the chaff, and I feel like the Holy Spirit is our discernment, where He accepts everything that's real and true for us, and discards everything else. And that's why we have to rely on the Holy Spirit for guidance in a practical way.
Um, and I love that you said in a practical way because, and we've touched upon this a few times so far. A lot of times we think of spirituality as any form of spirituality. It's very good in theory that living this kind of life, but turn on the news, face reality. It's a dog eat dog world. There's bad things going on. There's troublesome times. You got to dive in and get involved, or you got to retreat all the way out of it. But the course is saying there's a whole another way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think when you watch the news, it's helpful to have Jesus's reminder that the world you perceive, the world of fragmentation and differences, is not the real world that the Holy Spirit offers as a gift. But the real world is a world of no competition. The real world is a world of no comparison. There's no conflict in the real world. There's no war. If you listen to people like maybe Muji or Adyashanti, they'll talk about unified awareness, Rupert Spira. Unified awareness is coming to release all sense of categorizing and come into allowance, and I call it acceptance. And that's why he says accept the atonement, because the correction is just a unified way of looking at the world. So one of the beliefs that the sleeping mind suffers from is the belief in linear time. But Jesus says clearly that God did not create linear time, that he's teaching us to open to the holy instant, that the past is over, it can touch me not, and the future is but imagined. These Nobody told us that the past and future were defense mechanisms. We learned all about projection and denial and repression and sublimation and all these things when I was in psychology. We learned all these defense mechanisms. Not once did the professor say, "Oh, the past is a defense and the future is is a defense." We accepted that was linear time was real, and so everything we perceive in terms of a conflictual, competitive, warring, fragmented world is based on linear time. So, of the last three revival weekends I've been doing on the weekends, we've been one week we emphasized that the immediacy of salvation, where Jesus says, be not content with future happiness, for it is not your just reward, for you have cause for freedom now. It's what you were starting off our talk today about. You were saying forgiveness is now. The gift of forgiveness is right now. He's not saying, oh yeah, just keep practicing and maybe, like you were saying, in the future, yeah, someday you'll get happy. He's not saying, no, don't even give yourself that hope, because that's just a distraction away from fully embrace right now that you are free. And he says another in that same section, he said, future loss is not your fear. Your real your real dread, he says, is present joining. So every time we come together like we're doing now, with a spirit of openness, with a spirit of discovery, with a spirit of, wow, this is a precious opportunity to be shown what's really true on the inside. then I feel like we are inviting heaven. We are inviting nirvana right now. And that's very, very precious to me. Very, very precious.